Hello, 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 everyone. I am Rosalind Brown of Your Wealth Guidance, where we help Black women create their financial independence roadmap and identify the tools for success so you can live your life on your own terms. Thank you for tuning in today. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you do not miss any of our future Money Mondays. And so today we have a great speaker, and I always love when we have speakers who are sitting in and living in and enjoying their retirement. And so we have Jay Ophelia. She retired in her 50s after spending years as a principal and 7 years in the UAE in education. She knew she wanted to get away from the cold and dark days of the UK and found Barbados to be home. She calls her current state seasonal retirement, and she returns to the UK for a few months at a time to visit friends and family. In her time retired, she loves snapping pictures, trying good food, and walking. And she uses her YouTube platform to spread the word about how to prepare to retire in Barbados and the many benefits and loves there. So we haven't had a speaker yet to kind of share, Barbados as being their retirement home. So I was super excited. Like, this is a new place. I know a million people are like, I want a vacation. But not everybody is thinking, I want to retire in Barbados. So, Jay, tell us, how did you decide this was going to be the place for you?
Well, firstly, just want to say thanks for inviting me, Rosa, for this fantastic opportunity to share my experience with your subscribers. It's been, for me, an amazing, I would say, couple of years now, because I came last year to Barbados for 5 months, and I'm here again for another 5 months. So yes, I am truly living what I describe, and I'm sure there is a term for it, but seasonal retirement. So basically, I come to Barbados when it's cold in the UK. And obviously here it's just beautiful temperatures, and actually it's meant to be the dry season, but yeah, perfect temperatures for me. Hence I'm sitting outside. Unfortunately, it's not the daytime, so I can't show you the beautiful blue sky or the sunset, but yes, trust me, it's beautiful here. So yeah, I basically chose Barbados because actually I'm of Jamaican heritage. I love the Caribbean. So I love the culture. I love the lifestyle of the Caribbean in general. And basically, I lived in the United Arab Emirates for 7 years before I decided to retire. I kind of planned it. I knew I wanted to retire at 55, and it was a question of where to. I knew I didn't want to stay in the UK for many different reasons, mainly because of the weather, and another reason being my health. I have lupus, and I can't really manage the cold winters in the UK now. They're getting colder and colder. So I had made a conscious decision that I was either going to go to Africa. I was specifically focusing at that time on Ghana, because I had bought land quite a few years ago in Ghana. And then my sister came and her husband, they came and they retired early, about 5 years prior to me making that decision. And so I thought, I had already been to Barbados a few times, but just as a tourist and on holiday. And then I started to think, you know what, I think I could live in Barbados. And most people, if you're in England, you know that they often call Barbados England, because it is, has many things that are based on the English system, the British system. So, but it is still uniquely Barbados, and that is something which I really love about Barbados. I think it's a very iconic island, and it has its own natural uniqueness about it, and that's what attracted me to it. So yeah, so I made the decision that I wanted to live in the Caribbean, and specifically Barbados. The reasons being, the people are so friendly. That's one thing I've really noticed, and I wanted to live in a community where I felt safe. And I do feel safe here. There's no grills on the windows here, although you might see them in some houses, but it's not, I feel, as a security, it's more the style. I feel I walk by myself, I walk with friends early in the morning, and I feel very safe in this place. And again, so that was another important issue as a woman coming here to live by myself. I wanted to make sure that I had that. And then, as I said to you before, so it's the people, the weather. There's a lot to do here. It's a really interesting island, and there are so many cultural and just lots of interesting things. And I love cultural festivals. I love anything to do with creativity and art. I love anything to do with nature. I like to go out dancing and all those things. And there's all those and more happening here. So if you like to be in a place where there's a lot of things to do, Barbados has a lot of things to do to suit different budgets as well, from just free things, from going to the beach to going out to, like, for example, they just had an agricultural festival at the weekend. Again, Whole Town, one of the local areas, had a massive festival the week before. And that's just one or two things. There's so many things happening. And you can imagine this is after COVID, where everything was really locked down. So things are just beginning now to get back to a state of normality, which is wonderful. So yeah, I think that's, yeah, health, lifestyle. Had family who were here. And also there's a good mixture of expats out here. There's a lot of expats working out here because there's a particular welcome stamp where they're actually encouraging people to come and work out here in Barbados if they fit the criteria for this welcome stamp visa, which gives you 12 months to live and work here. So you're working for your company back in the US or wherever, but you have that visa where you can work here in Barbados. So yeah, so there's a lot of different people here, so it's very interesting.
And that's
Long-winded
looking
answer.
for their remote work, and they're like, yes, I got a place to go. And we were
Definitely.
talking about this before we started, especially in light, you said you have lupus and you're leaving the UK. And so as an American, we always look and we're like, but y'all have free health insurance, y'all actually are covered. And so to leave there and to go to Barbados in terms of care and access and so forth, and that's probably one of the bigger concerns as people talk about or think about moving abroad is the quality of care going to be the same as what one would receive in maybe the UK or the US or what have you? How have you seen that difference?
I found, and I have obviously had to go to the doctor to pick up prescriptions and so on, and I have had checkups here. So, and I found the doctors here, certainly where I go, to be excellent. To me, I think what's happening is people in England, things have changed a lot. Unfortunately, there's a lot of challenges with the healthcare system, the national health in the UK. It actually takes a long time for you to be seen by a general practitioner, your GP. It could take you 1-2 weeks to see somebody. It could take you months. People are on the waiting list to be seen by specialists. Whereas what I'm finding here is you can ring and you can make an appointment, and people do take the time. I feel it's still like we were in the UK perhaps 15, 20 years ago, where the doctors were able to spend 10 minutes, 15 minutes talking to you. That just does not happen. It just does not happen. In the UK, you tend to find that you will go to your doctors and you'll see different people, and it's not always the actual GP. It might be a specialist nurse and so on. And that's because of the challenges in the UK at the moment, not having sufficient nurses and doctors and so on. So I am happy, very happy there's no problems whatsoever of going to the doctors here at
I
all.
love to hear that. It's like I keep hearing it, but then you keep hearing from the other side where people are like, I don't know, I'm worried. Is that the same? Is that the same care? So I
Yes,
always, like to be at least to reinforce that you could get similar, sometimes better care. I mean, just
yeah,
think about the average time that most people see a physical doctor when they go in.
yes,
It might be a
yeah.
minute or so, and they're like, "All right, what's wrong? Okay, next."
Also, what I find is good as well is because you're actually in a country where a majority of people are black. So when I go to the doctor, I'm seeing a black doctor. Now, I don't know about the US, but in the UK, there are not many, well, from my experience, I've met one black doctor in my whole experience of going to the doctors. So what I like here is that you've got people who can relate to some of the issues that you may be experiencing um, from that point of view of a black woman, so they are understanding things to do with some of the illnesses that we might like, autoimmune illnesses, high blood pressure, all those kinds of things that sometimes we have to, uh, um, as black people, be very careful about. They do have that understanding, and they are
Mhm.
quick to say, what about this, think about that, which you don't get that, certainly not in the UK. But I can't say from my people's experience in America, but where my experience of how many 50 years of experience of going to doctors, no,
Not the same.
no, no, you don't
I
get
think
that.
that's a really good point, and I love when you said, and especially Ghana's been super popular. But when you said you bought land, this was before it became super popular. What
Yes,
made you pick Barbados over Ghana?
yeah, people have been asking me that question. I mean, I bought land and looked at Ghana in, I think it was about 2007, 2008. Um, and so I had that land for quite a long time, and I was going to build. And then the more I started to think, as I sort of got nearer to this, into my 50s, and I started to think about what were the things I wanted to have around me, the people I wanted to be around in, my retirement. And for me, what was really crucial was about having, if possible, family. And another issue was also about the language. So I knew that obviously I do love Ghana, but there are still cultural and language challenges and barriers which um, you have to remember, you have to consider those things. So
Mhm.
I'm not going to go into all the details, but I just had experience of people who were from the UK who were having challenges more recently, and that was one of the reasons that made me think maybe I don't want to sort of put all my eggs in one basket by going to Ghana. So Ghana I love, and I will travel to Ghana and I will go on holiday there and so on and have friends there. But coming here was like coming home in a way. And I know people will say that the same as going to Ghana, and you do. There is a amazing feeling when you go to Ghana. But here, what I found was that it was very easy for me to meet people, to feel comfortable, to feel safe, feeling that I could go anywhere and not have to worry about where I was going, that I might need to go with somebody else who knows the country, who knows the culture. So that's why Barbados was an easy option really for me.
And you
Yes.
said your sister came first, so your sister and her husband came first. Now, were
Yeah.
they trying to convince you for, the last
No,
few years?
no, because I've lived in the Dominican Republic. I've worked in the Dominican Republic, and I've worked in Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates. So I've traveled a lot over the years. I've traveled to many different countries. And so for me, it was, I don't know, I think as you get older, maybe there's certain things you start to feel that you want around you. So I've been an expat and I've been in these countries by myself and made new friends and all the rest of it. But now it was like, okay, well, if there's, and that's just one member of the family. I've got a massive family all over the place. Um, but so that's just one aspect. The real driver, as I've said, is more to do with the ease of being able to drive on the left hand side of the road, drive on the left hand side of the road in the UK. It's just the ease of it, but also the way that you are made to feel welcome here. Because I didn't want to come to a place and just be work, just I suppose, just have expat friends. I want to live and have with locals and have local friends. That's what I've always done wherever I've been as an expat. I'm not being the sort of person who just stays with expats. I want to see the real country mixed with the real people. That's what I'm able to do here. So that's what was important to me. And I don't want to feel that I have to do those things just with family. If I want to do, I want to feel confident I can go out and meet my own friends. And that's what I've been able to do. So, yeah.
I love it that, that true mix. And I always, when we talk about like house hunting trips and so forth, it's what makes you feel like home. And
Exactly.
it's hard to even describe it because I've been some places and I'm like, oh, this feels like home. And then you go and visit someone else and they're like, this doesn't feel like home to you. And you're like, no, this is a nice place, but it's not that
Yes,
place.
yes,
Um,
yes,
and I loved when you talked about your work. And so, your last few years before you retired, you were in UAE. And so, it was a great opportunity for you to kind of accelerate your retirement savings and, work somewhere else, have some tax benefits and those kind of things. And I think that's, especially as we talk to the ladies about unconventional ways to get someplace that other people might not. So, some of your peers probably had to work another 10 years. Um, and so tell us a little bit about like how you made that decision, and then how that really propelled you to the point where you could say, all right, I'm done working. This is fun.
yes. Well, both the occasions when I've worked in the Dominican Republic and when I've worked in the UAE, it was all very strategic. I got secondments, so my job was still saved. So, even though it wasn't unpaid, I was going somewhere else where I was going to be paid. So, I always, although it was a risk, I knew I always had my jobs that I could go back to if things weren't working out. So, I would say always I was asking for secondments from many years ago. It wasn't something that people typically did, but I started to ask for secondments as a principal when I knew that the school was in a really good position, when I knew that the school was strong, it had gone through all the inspections, and I knew that I had the right people in place to cover me. So I was able to put a good case to the governors to say, I'd like to do this, um, and these will be the benefits to the school. So I would always link what I was doing with my school back at home. So there would be projects, so it would be international links, developing those international links between my school in England and the school in Dominican Republic, the same as when I went to the UAE. But the difference was when I went to the UAE, after 6 months, I realized I wasn't going to go back because I realized that this was an opportunity for me to save money and to escalate, as you've just said, the way to retire early, which I knew that I would not have this opportunity again. So I was very fortunate because the school was left in a really good position, had a really good vice principal. And it was always in there that I might not come back. But I gave them good warning because I realized, so they had plenty of time. And then I realized I would stay here. And at that point, I looked at my pension, looked at how much I wanted to save and how I was going to save that. And yeah, so basically every month I say I was able to save a certain amount of money because it was tax, I had tax-free status. And then also my accommodation was paid for and had fantastic accommodation out there. So I would encourage people to look at opportunities like this, as long as you get a good, the actual, I suppose the package that you get is a good package. In other words, you get your salary, you get flights home, or you get your accommodation, most definitely, you get private healthcare, all these things. So that helped me a lot. So I could then say, still had a fantastic life out there, don't get me wrong, but I didn't go mad like some people might have, because I knew I had this goal, and I knew I had a certain number of years in which to do it, which was the 7 years. And so I was able to do that.
And what's the average age for most people that they retire in the UK? I know in the US it's, late
Okay,
60s, 70s.
it's kind of 65, and I think they're moving it to 67.
So
That's what I've
definitely cut
heard.
off 10 years from when you would have
Yeah,
had to
yeah,
continue to
yeah,
work.
yeah, yeah. There are people who will take their pension at 55, but they know they're going to take a big drop, in terms of the amount of money that they would get if they stayed. But in the UK, they've been making a lot of changes, and so actually, uh, I was very fortunate in that they made those changes after, so it didn't really affect me in that way. But you could take pension out, you could vest it. So, there were opportunities to do these things. And also, when you work abroad, there are certain things that you can do with investing that you can't do when you're in the UK. So, for example, having these bank accounts which are offshore, and so different things. There's different opportunities when you work in a tax-free haven. It means that you do get the opportunity to invest your money in different ways, which helps. Yeah.
But it just goes back, especially we talk about the education system here and how much educators here are paid or how little they're paid. It's a great opportunity that if you can to say, how much can I get closer to my goal if I
Yes.
decide to make this move? And I know it's one of those that can be scary to some, and they're like, I don't know. I
Yes.
don't know if I'm going to leave my family. But
Yeah.
really, and that even goes back to your point in terms of creating family. So you have your sister there, but as you've lived abroad, how are you finding and creating this community in different places? Some might be expats and some might be locals, but I know that's a concern that people have as they're like, I'm going to be here all alone. How are you kind of creating that community?
All the places that I've been to, I think when I went to the UAE, you have, like you say, it can be a little challenge initially, because you might find that your friends could just become your work friends, your work colleagues, and that's not really what I wanted. So in the UAE, I would specifically look for groups to join. And Meetup was I don't know if you've heard of meetup.com.
Yeah, I love
Now,
Meetup. Yeah.
yeah, and now I'd never used it in the UK, but I was Googling and that came up. And through that, I met a whole load of people. It was one of the best things I ever did. And from that, I joined a group, and it just, yeah, it just transformed my kind of social life really out there. And I met people from all over the world, because UAE has people from all over the world, which again, a lot of people don't realize. So that was fantastic. And then in the same way, when I've come here, people are just very friendly. People will just say hello to you as you're walking along. And if you can be of the same nature and just say hello to people and just be polite, you know, people will say, oh, I've not seen you before. And a conversation begins. And then from that, you say, oh, where do you walk? Well, I walk over here, or I go to the beach. Oh, well, do you want to join us? And it's very much like that. But there are also a lot of Facebook groups as well. So I'm also in a few Facebook groups, some where they just give you information about Barbados, and it's more about more of the tourist kind of people who are on a holiday kind of group. But then I'm also in another group, a Black Pats group, which is it's expats who are here from the US, from all over, who are either here because they're working here, or they are back in England or Canada, wherever, but they are making their way to they are working on coming to Barbados, or they might come for a couple of months a year, or a holiday, but they are focused on being in Barbados in the long term. So yes, there's lots of groups like that, expat groups. And as I said, joining, so if you have an interest in things, so I like walking, so I've met people who like walking. There's Barbados has a fantastic hiking association. It's an amazing community. They walk every Sunday all over the island, so you can really get to see off the beaten track the real Barbados. And as I said, there's so many other things depending on what you're interested in. There's lots of things, you know, they have so many events that, you know, they've got the, I think they've got the polo, they've got the horse, competitions, and, you know, there's just so many things. And then, of course, as you know, you've got all the cultural events that happen as well. Crop over, which is a massive thing, which happens.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so there's just so many different things that are happening here, which is why you'll find Barbados is very popular to tourists in general, especially in the UK. A lot of people come here all the time, and they come over and over again. So there is something about it, because they will come, they say, I've been 10 times, and they don't get, it's a small island, but they still love it, and they still keep coming.
And I think that's because so many people know Barbados as a vacation destiny. And, you know, from what I know, it's like this is not a cheap place. And as people are thinking of where are they going to go? So a lot of people pick locations trying to see where their dollar will go further. And I loved it when we were chatting beforehand. And I was like, oh, I didn't think about that. I didn't think about that. You know, we're thinking about it oftentimes from a tourist lens. And of course, you know, everybody's charging the tourists that much more. But you shared a lot in terms of like the readily access of internet, or, you know, the public bus system and so forth. What are some ways that people could make Barbados home without the touristy price tag?
Yes. So, for example, I would say the transport system here is actually very good, which sometimes people aren't aware of. And again, a lot of this information is on my YouTube channel in terms of the videos that I have I've done over the past probably 6 weeks, and just giving people tips and just giving people information. And that's what I will continue to do. But for example, transport here, you have the city buses, which are the electric buses, which are air conditioned. So what I would say is you don't have to come here feeling that you have to have a car. You know, there are people, plenty of people who come here and they use the bus system, even tourists now, as a way to save money. They're not hiring cars as much as they used to, or even using the taxi service, even though again, there is a taxi service. They're getting on the buses because it's very cheap, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So I would say that you just need to consider that it might not be, yes, certain things are expensive, but you can perhaps save your money in other ways. So that's one thing that I would say. And obviously, if you are coming here, that's why it's quite important to consider where you live and to choose an area which is not too far from the buses, so it's easy to access the buses. And you know, that's a good way to be able to save your money. Also, again, I always say you have to shop smart. Support local people. Support local people, because local people are using the exact same shops and earning less. So how are they doing it? Because they shop smart. And that's what you have to do. You have to do the same. So you don't come here and then continue to behave as a tourist, going into the shops and picking the same brands. No, you can see that actually if you buy a different brand, just as good quality, just not a name brand that you might recognize in the US or in the UK, you could save yourself a lot of money. So it's that sort of thing. You know, you kind of, when you're at home, you kind of get used to buying certain brands. And actually you suddenly realize that is that is deliberate to make us spend our money in a certain way. It doesn't necessarily mean quality. So you have to start, I would say, just be more smart about your shopping. When you do go to certain supermarkets, check the different, I don't know, whatever, tunas. There's a whole selection, and you'll find there'll be, you know, the price will vary, and it will be sometimes ridiculously overpriced, the brand that you might want or recognize. But actually, you could save money if you got a different brand and you would be just as happy with it. So those are the kinds of things that you need to think about when you are living here. Yes.
I love it. And I love that most people don't retire, you know, well, a lot of people retire from something. So they retire from toxic job, overworking,
Yeah.
all the millions of things. But the most successful people are retiring to something. And so you have your passions, you have things that you're loving to do. One of which being your YouTube channel. So you're sharing
Yeah.
information for those that are like, oh, I didn't think about moving to Barbados. I want to come for vacation or whatever that is. And so tell us a little bit about some of the things that you're doing now that you have this additional time on your hands, but then some of the things that you talk about more on your own YouTube channel.
Okay. So now that I'm actually here and I have more time to focus on my health, which is, you know, a real priority for me. It means that I'm able to get up early, walk. Um, you know, I haven't got the snow and the cold stopping me from going out. There's no excuse. Here, it's a beautiful place. You know, I've got people who walk with me, so it means that I am actually more active when I'm here, and people actually will say that they are more active. You go to the beach and you'll find locals swimming from 6 a.m. in the morning. You walk out in the morning and you'll see local people walking. Everybody's walking, you know, early in the morning. So you kind of like just begin to see that people are more active than they are sort of at this time in the UK. Because in the UK, I know that most people, the weather's been so bad they can't go out. You know, so I've been able to be more active. I've been able to spend more time on myself, because after how many years of working, I love my job, I love my profession, I love working with children, young people, parents, my colleagues, my staff that I've worked with over the years. It's been fantastic. But now I feel I was ready to have that time to do the things that I want to do. To, you know, there's a lot of things I wasn't able to do in the past because I was always putting work first. Now I'm putting myself first, and I think that's the thing that I'm focusing on with the channel, is to say, as women, we spend a lifetime looking after everybody else. Many people are the breadwinners, they're out working, they're looking after the children, they're looking after their grandchildren. There comes a time when we need to say, look, we need to put ourselves first, because if not, what I've noticed in England is I've had friends who have become very ill in their 50s. And I feel that it's important that you enjoy your retirement before it's too late. So I know you were saying, Rosa, that a lot of the people who are your subscribers are younger. And I think that's fantastic, because if I had the chance to do it again, I would prepare earlier for retirement, because I didn't really think about retirement in my 30s and my 40s. It was only when all of a sudden it hit me when I got to my mid 40s. Wow. Yeah, I don't want to be working for another 20 odd years. No, as much as I love it. No, there's so many things I want to do. I want to do for me. And so I think that's what I'm able to do now. I'm painting, drawing, YouTube. I love, because I'm editing. I take a lot of photographs. So I'm making, it's stuff that I enjoy doing. It makes me happy.
Oh,
Yes.
I love it. Now, one thing, your preparation. So you make the decision that you're going to move to Barbados, and people do this a ton of different ways. Some people sell every single thing and they're just gone. I know you're going back and forth. Did you keep your place? Are you renting it out? Are you, Airbnb? What is the structure so you have a place to return? I know some people are like, oh, I'll just sleep on someone's sofa, but maybe that's
Yeah. Well, every time in the past when I went to Dominican Republic and I went to the UAE, I basically let my house out. So I don't have that attachment to a house as I initially, I could never let my house out, but I did. So I had a management company that looked after the house, and it was rented out. Now that I'm coming here for a few months of the year, my house is there, and people are saying, well, you could rent it out, but it would be for 6 months. And I think now that's what I've come to the stage where I've just left it on these last two occasions, because it would be hard to get somebody in just for 6 months. And would it be worth it? But I am now in a situation where I've got to make a decision. Am I going to sell the house? What am I going to do, basically? So yes, eventually I'm thinking, still haven't made the final decision, but I'm thinking I'm going to sell my house in England. And then when I'm in England, I could rent when I go back. There's so many options. I'm not that attached to the house because I've been out of the country for so many years on and off, that I'm not like how I used to be. Do you know, it's not, it's
I
a
think that,
house.
yeah, we were. I think we were talking about that with some of the ladies a day or so ago. When people, I think about when I bought my first house, and it was this massive house with all this space, and it was just me. Like,
Yes,
and then over time, you're like, I don't need as much stuff. Um,
exactly.
and it just puts things into perspective. And I couldn't really put my finger on, when did that pivot occur? But it
Yeah.
definitely changed in terms of how much value we place on stuff
Yes,
versus that
exactly.
freedom from stuff.
It changed, for me. It definitely changed I think, yeah, the first time, which I think was 2001, when I went to Dominican Republic and then came back 2 years later. I think at that point, that was my first time going and living abroad for 2 years. And when I came back, I was changed. I knew I was just not settled. I knew I wanted to see and live abroad again. So, and I knew I would not live in England full time. I knew eventually I would go and live somewhere else. So I was able to travel on holidays. Yes, I was lucky I was able to do that. But I knew eventually I would retire in a different country, and I'm really happy that I'm doing that. But you have to be persistent to make it happen. You do, because sometimes you might have people who will say, "Well, why are you doing that?" And you know, question what you're doing. You have to your happiness, because to be honest, even if my sister wasn't here, if I wanted to come here, I would come, because I've already done it. How many, you know, because I would make friends, and wherever I've been, my family have come because they all love to see where I am, and they come. So it's not that, it's not like I'm not going to see them, and it's not like I wouldn't go back to England as well.
I love that. And that's a really good point as you talk about, even if your sister wasn't there, you would still go.
Still
But I
go.
wonder about even that first trip, because I think sometimes that's the hurdle. People are scared to go on their first solo trip. People are scared to move
Yes.
abroad the first time. What helped you get over kind of that initial, is this the thing to do?
Okay. So I think the thing that helped me immensely was to not come with fixed ideas of how Barbados will be. I think that's important, and I think it's also important to come here and not keep comparing it to how things are in England or wherever. Oh, why isn't this like this? Why isn't like that? I've learned that from being an expat in many different countries. It's important to respect the culture, respect the people. And I find that if you go in there wanting to learn about that place and not feeling that you're going in telling them, oh, it's better, we do it like this in England, you will not get the kind of I suppose support that you want and that you need, really. So I think it's important that you are open, and I would always recommend coming on a sort of scouting trip, and trying to link up with people beforehand. And that's what I'm trying to provide through my channel, a way to be able to link people who are seriously wanting to come and scout out Barbados, where I could actually provide that service as to help them to actually come and see Barbados and the aspects that they would need to be able to give them a better insight beyond the tourist insight, so that they would have the information to be able to make a better decision as to whether this could be the place that they would want to retire to, whether it's seasonally or whether it is more the long-term situation that they're looking for.
I think
Definitely.
that's a good point. And I just dropped the link for her channel as well. So, after this, head on over there and take a look. And your pictures and so forth are fabulous. My goodness. Especially if
Thank
you're
you.
like, you're still in a turtleneck because it's still cold. It's so cold. Now, this is one thing, because there's always people, and it doesn't matter if you are just traveling, if you're moving. And so, is it just the two siblings? So, you and your sister? Are there other family members that were like, "Wait, don't go there. Don't move there."
Well, I think they've just got used to the fact that for me that I have been that person that's traveled a lot, and I do will go to you know, and live in different countries and work in different countries, because it really interests me, and I feel that it's really good. It opens your eyes to what is out there. And what I have learned from traveling is that sometimes you think the country that you've grown up in has everything, and it's not until you start to explore and see more of the world you realize there's so much beauty beyond. I'm not saying the UK's not got beauty, it has, but it's a different beauty, more to explore. And I just feel that sometimes as well, I found that I've been appreciated more in different places, you know, and that has actually been really nice, really good to have had that experience. When I went to the UAE, I was really in a situation as a black person, you know, in the UK as a principal. I've had challenges sometimes in terms of getting positions, even though I know I'm a fantastic principal, and I know people will always say that, my families and so on, because I've worked very hard um, to, to do that job, and because I'm very passionate about it. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you will always get the positions that you want. And I found that when I went to UAE, I was treated in a way that didn't really, where I felt it, they didn't judge me first on my color of my skin. And that was a really important thing for me, because I know, not to go into all the details, where I have been in situations where the color of my skin has stopped me from getting certain positions in the UK. And that's, I've just learned to live with those things and move on. But so what I'm saying is, sometimes when we start to step out of our comfort zone, we might actually find that some things could actually be easier, that life could be easier. The fact that you've got, going to a place where maybe you can earn more money and you're not taxed. And actually, there's just so many things, that, so I know teaching is a very challenging position. I always say that to people. But I would say, if you do teaching, one thing that is very attractive to people in different countries is the qualification that we have. So if you do that, but, yes, maybe teach in your country for a few years, but don't rule out teaching abroad, teaching internationally, because you might find that you get some opportunities that you might not have got before.
I love that. And then on the other end, have you motivated some people who were probably going to always teach? They were going to always stay at that same school. They were, always going to be in the UK. And now they're saying, I'm coming too, or I'm leaving. I'm packing
Yeah,
up and, now I'm going to make home somewhere else. Do you have
yeah.
a few of those stories where you can say it's because of my
Yes, I have. A couple of my friends came last year to see me in Barbados, and yeah, they were just sort of really bowled over by it, really excited by Barbados, and they are coming back this year with their family, and with the view to looking to see whether they can find somewhere they want to spend time here in Barbados, whether it's through the seasonal retirement or eventually, more of a permanent retirement. That's what they are definitely focused on. Yes. And those are friends. Yes.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that people, and now they're like, I didn't have Barbados on my list, but now it is. What are some things to be prepared for? This is something that's going to be different. This might be a cultural shock. What are some of those things that might be on the list, or things that they need to make sure you're prepared? You have, I mean, when you say drive on the left side, last time I tried that, I kept veering off to the so I probably just don't need to be the person to drive.
When I was in UAE, they drove on the right side, so I had to learn all of that. Yeah, so I do understand exactly what you're talking about. I would say that it's about, as I said before, don't come with that concept of what I do back home is always better. Don't come with fixed ideas, and also be very patient. It is more laid back. Things may take a little longer. to get done, but they will get done. You know, I think that's what those are the kinds of things that you have to be prepared for. But yes, so maybe things will be slower in terms of maybe the bureaucracy of certain things or certain procedures that you have to follow. You might find that it feels as if that was 10 years ago, but things will get done. And that's the whole point, really. For me, it was about having a slower pace of life, still excitement, but it's about getting rid of the stress so that you can, because stress is the number one killer.
Mhm.
Stress is the thing that is going to cause you, and you may not realize that when you're sort of in your 30s and your 40s and you feel very healthy and everything. But stress is the thing that causes inflammation, that causes diseases. So actually, you want to come to a place where things are, are less stressful. And that's what I found here. Things you will slow down, you know, um, and that for me has been better. Yes, I just don't get upset by those kind of things.
It's always one of those things, it takes you a moment because even if you're on vacation and you're trying to decompress from the, wild and crazy of work life, and in those first few days, you're like, why is it taking so long? Why aren't they here already? Why is the driver not here? All those kind of things. And you
Yeah,
realize, okay, it's me. I'm the one that needs to change, not
exactly.
everyone else.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. And that's what I would say. If you come with that mentality, positive mentality, understanding there's bound to be differences, but look for the positives because there's so many positive things out there, and you will, I'm sure, go back feeling that yeah, Barbados has something. And yeah, I felt good in Barbados. Yes,
and you have
So
convinced me. It seems, especially if you have been following us for a while, I'm like, oh my gosh, now I want to come. So I add that to my list of
well,
places.
our beaches are beautiful. The beaches are beautiful. The water is fantastic. You have to, and it's not far, to get to a beach. It's very quick. The island is a small island, so you can get from one end of the island to the next. These are the things that make it, it's very accessible. These are the things that make it actually really attractive. Within, I can get to the beach within 15-minute walk, 10-15-minute walk, 2 minutes in the car. And most people can get to the beach within half an hour. That's fine. That's amazing.
There's nothing like it. Yeah. Oh, I love it. I'm sold. So now I'm breaking down. I'm like, okay, I gotta get out there. And so I know we're right against time, and you are a little bit later than us on the East Coast. So I want to be respectful of your time too. But any last minute kind of thoughts or advice for people, either as they're planning to retire early or trek from, the UK or wherever to maybe someplace in the Caribbean? Any, last thoughts or things and so forth. And of course, the link is in here. So make sure you hit the subscribe button on her page as well and go over and check out her videos.
Thank you. I mean, that would be lovely if people were to sort of at least come to the channel. The channel is in its infancy, but it's proving popular and growing steadily. And I'm hearing from people who really are interested in coming to Barbados. Many people who already know Barbados, they're Bayesian, and they have a deep love for this island as well. And then there are those out there who don't know anything about Barbados, and they are very inquisitive. So I would say, I think it's important to look at maybe three, don't just look at one place, look at 3 or 4 different places, and then find out as much as you can about those places and then visit. That's what I would say. And I think there are different channels now where you can actually generally find people who are, because I know there's been a big interest in Mexico. For me, what I'm liking is the fact that I don't have to learn another language. I had to do that in the Dominican Republic. I had to learn Spanish. So I remember the challenge of that. And here I don't. Obviously, you know, that in itself makes life a lot easier in terms of communicating with people, even paperwork, the official documentation, you know, having lived and worked in the UAE, everything again in Arabic, I know all those kind of issues can slow things down. You know, when you're signing papers, official papers, and it's not English language in a different language, there are, you know, so here you don't have that. So I don't have that stress. So I think the language is good for one for me. Also, the culture, as I've said to you, is great. I'm coming into a country and the majority of people are black, and again, so they know that I'm not Bayesian in that respect. They know I'm from the UK, but they accept me for who I am and who I portray myself to be. And I think that's why you have to just be yourself. Don't try to pretend you're anything, you know. I think, I suppose what it is because sometimes we're coming from a bigger island or a big country or big state. I've learned over the years of being an expat that it is important to come to the country that you're going to and learn about it. Be prepared to learn about it, and you will see that there are so many things to enjoy and appreciate about that culture. Yes, there may be things that are different that might annoy you, but you made that decision to come, so you have to kind of like, in a way, fall in with that and accept it. Sometimes you might not be accepting of everything, but I think I don't like to pull people's countries down. I think because I see the positives, I always look for the positives, and I know that there are many positive things here. And I think being a seasonal retiree means that I get the best of both worlds, to be honest. So I go back to England, and England in the summer. I love England in the summer. I've got my family and my friends there. So it is. So maybe what I'm saying to people is maybe consider a seasonal retirement. It doesn't have to perhaps be all permanent. Maybe consider a few years of going between two countries, and that might actually be what you enjoy.
I love that. That is great advice, especially for people who are on the fence. So then you don't have to just give up everything and make
Yeah,
that track, but at least you could take that break. And of course, a lot of people are doing just the gap year. So they're just taking a year off, and they
exactly.
may decide they want to go back to work. They may decide they want to go back and live in the house
Exactly.
and everything back.
Yeah.
So more
Yeah,
than likely they'll get
definitely.
changed, like you.
Yeah, definitely. I would encourage people to do that. I think it's a great way to test the waters, and then you see for yourself. Yes.
I love it. Well, Jade, thank you so much for being with
You're
us.
welcome.
Go over, hit the subscribe button, watch all her videos out there, and then head over to Barbados and, make sure you do it while she's still there before she heads back to the UK for a few months. And venture out and see if this would be the place for you. So until next time, I want to thank you so much, Jay, and thank you everyone for being with us today, and have a wonderful night. Good night.
Thank you, Rosa. Thank you. Good night, everybody. Thank you.